Good morning, everybody. কেমন আছেন সবাই? Hello. Okay, so this is the event is about talking about the way, but also we thought that we can use this event to not only talking about how different people have found their own ways, and at the same time how the organization BRAC has found its own way. So what I'm going to give you a talk about some of the origin story of BRAC, but at the same time, it's going to be a bit like a Netflix movie in multiple timelines, different characters. So I'll start with mine because my team said that everybody needs to hear a personal story. So I didn't want to talk about my story, but I just thought that it's going to be something that you probably will be able to connect with. Let me just quickly go back to this. So this is left on the right side. You see a message that a friend of mine actually sent me recently on 31st July. He sent me this message saying যে 2007-এর 31শে জুলাই তুই লিখছিলি এটা এখন কি অবস্থা I wrote to him কেমন আছো ভাই অনেক দিন কথা নাই আশা করি আস্তে আস্তে স্বাভাবিক হচ্ছে সব কবে যে দেশে ফিরবো তবে আজকাল সমাজ পরিবর্তনের চিন্তা একটু একটু করে কমাই দিচ্ছি এই নিরন্তর হতাশ হওয়া আর ভালো লাগে না 2007 সালের 31st July লেখা almost 18 years ago, right? So that's when I used to live abroad and I was plotting a comeback to Bangladesh. But when I saw that message and my kind of friend kind of told me sarcastically, এখন কি অবস্থা এখন কতটা হতাশ I said যে না হতাশ হওয়া ভালো দেশ নিয়ে চিন্তা করা এটা তো পার্ট অফ দ্য হোল জার্নি উই গো থ্রু আমরা হতাশ হই আবার আশাবাদী এক বছর আগে অনেক আশায় বুক বাঁধছিলাম আবার আমরা হতাশ সো এই তো কন্টিনিউয়াস একটা জার্নি চলতেছে আমাদের না ফাইন্ডিং what is it that we search for in our life that continuously have us look for new opportunities, new way of looking at hope, right? So এখন আমি যদি একটু আমার কথা বলি যে নিজে কেন এভাবে হয়েছিল I was born in a very like a middle class family. My father used to work in the government. Have you been to Kaptai? Any of you? Kaptai is like one of the most beautiful places in Chittagong Hill Tracts in all of Bangladesh. So he was there. He used to work there, and I kind of was born there, and I spent my early days over there. But when I was 18, again a very traditional life. When I was 18, my sister used to live abroad, and she said that I need to come for my undergraduate degree in the U.S. And so that's when I went, and the first year happened. So it was a very normal life, but then there were 3 transition points in my life that I want to tell you about, which had a profound impact in my life, right? And that's completely changed the way I thought about it. So first one was, this was my dad, right? So first one was like in December 1992, it was like a first year of my university I finished. And this is a picture of a hospital called Woodlands Hospital. So my dad went to Kolkata to travel, and then he became extremely ill in December 92. Nobody could tell what it was, what the disease was. And I was in the US, and I just got a call suddenly that we don't know whether he's going to last another 24 hours. So you need to come immediately. And then I bought a ticket and then came to Kolkata directly. And then luckily he was there. But then I couldn't go to see him because I don't know if you know how many of you know that there's a big Hindu-Muslim riot happened around Babri Mosque around that time. So I was stuck there, and then I was thinking that here was my life, which was perfectly normal. Did my first year. I was going to take my final exam in 2 weeks for my first year, and then suddenly I'm stuck in Kolkata. I don't know. People are coming, and in Hindu-Muslim riot is happening. I don't know how long my dad is going to survive. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna pay my tuition? Am I gonna be able to finish my education? So luckily he survived. He survived. He was there for a month, and then he came back to Bangladesh. It took a long time for him to recover. But what it dawned on me that I actually, when I went there, I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to, also I loved economics. I wanted to study economics. But I thought that I can't do those anymore because you have to be very, very good to do well on those careers. So I should switch because of the uncertainty that I have in my life. I should switch to something that will give me a job. I hated computer science, but I chose to major in computer science because এটা ছিল বাংলাদেশ সাউথ এশিয়ানদের ডিফল্ট মেজর বিকজ সবাই আমরা জানি যে কম্পিউটার সায়েন্সে পড়াশোনা করলে উইল গেট আ জব অ্যান্ড so I finished my graduation. I not only got one job before I graduated, I had 4 jobs lined up, one of the best, biggest companies in the world. And then my life became very, very like the typical immigrant's life, right? So essentially, you get a job, you have your career, you America গেলে মানুষ green card পায়, বিয়ে করে, বাচ্চা হয়, বাড়ি কেনে, that trajectory, right? It was going very well. Then the second turning point happened in my life, right? So I was actually worked at New York and I was working at Goldman Sachs, but it was again, it's a very good career and everything. But then something wasn't right, right? Something was like, didn't feel quite normal. I felt like I needed to do something more. And আমার সবসময় মনে হতো যে দেশের জন্য দেশের সঙ্গে somehow একটা কিছু কানেকশন দরকার দেশের সাথে. So that's when you see the picture on the right. There was this journalist called Tipu Sultan. His story got flashed in the newspaper quite a lot. So at that time, what happened was he was a pretty bright local correspondent in Feni. And at that time, the then MP and his goon beat him up for his writing so badly that both of his hands were disabled and he was drying up. So if he didn't get certain surgery within a certain time, then he would lose his hands completely, permanently. And it needed money. So I thought I'll just do a website. Good morning, VC sir. So I thought that I will do a website where I will talk about his story and then try to raise some money for him. So it was just done I was a computer science major, so doing websites and stuff, it wasn't very difficult for me. So I did it within a couple of hours. And then a very interesting thing happened. And of course, nobody knew me. I who would trust me to send some money? So I paired up with a local organization who was a charity. I said that if you write the check in the charity's name, they will ensure that they send it to Dhaka, right? So then within so 2-3 দিন পর থেকে চেক আসা শুরু করলাম আমার বাসায় এবং there were like so many response from all around the world প্রবাসী বাংলাদেশের because everybody was touched about this. Everybody wanted to do something and they figured out that there is maybe I contribute some money and that will be my way of contributing. So a taxi driver from New York sent me a $20 একটা চেক যে আমার খুব একটা এফোর্ড করতে পারি না কিন্তু আমি কিছু করতে চাই আমি আপনাকে পাঠাই. A hedge fund manager sent me a $1,000 check saying that I wanted to do something for this. So এরকম করে within 3 weeks I raised about $25,000. So তার টাকার দরকার ছিল about 40 লাখ and then ওখানে প্রায় 25 লাখ টাকা ওখানে আমি raise করে ফেললাম. Then I contacted Prothom Alo and Daily Star who were also raising money for him. And I said, ঢাকা থেকে raise করা হচ্ছে আমি এটাতে contribute করতে চাই. So money was sent. Then he got the treatment. He went to Bangkok, got the surgery, and he became abar ekdom normal and he joined Prothom Alo. He's now the chief correspondent of a chief reporter in Prothom Alo actually. So when this happened, this gave me a lot of like sense of empowerment. I could do something. It was game changing. And a lot of people who were involved in the fundraising, they said that why don't we keep this platform? Why don't we do on more আরো এরকম কি করে আরো অন্য ইস্যুতে আমরা কাজ করতে পারি কিনা. So then we formed a group, a voluntary group called Drishtipat. And then the voluntary group নিউ ইয়র্ক থেকে একটা চ্যাপ্টার শুরু হলো, দেন আস্তে আস্তে বিভিন্ন শহরে এগুলোর চ্যাপ্টার শুরু হলো, and pretty soon there were almost 4,000 second generation Bangladeshis who were involved and part of this network, and they basically supported their own pet projects. So I was in daytime, I was working at Goldman, and at the nighttime I was doing my internet activism. It branched out into, we started a blog which was very popular called Unheard Voices. We supported many different types of projects. And I got to know a lot of people through this process as well. And then I started coming back to Bangladesh quite frequently. And I figured that যে আমার মধ্যে যে জিনিসটা, there was something that was not quite happy. I found that calling, that this was what was giving me that satisfaction and gratification. My daytime employment was paying my bills. This was giving me the food for my soul. So, but then the inkling started, because my involvement became so big. This was not very sustainable. I mean, dine rate 4 ঘন্টা ঘুমাতাম. Then I figured that this is giving me so much pleasure. Maybe I should try this sector out. Try working in this sector and in the development sector. And I decided, what better way to do it rather than coming back to Bangladesh. So Bangladeshe যখন ফিরে আসার একটা ডিসিশন নিলাম. So that was my third sort of the turning point. In 2009, I decided I was going to come back, and I didn't really have any job lined up. I just decided that I'm in Bangladesh, small business গুলা নিয়ে কাজ করব. And because I worked at Goldman Sachs for 12 years, so I had some savings. I bought my sort of freedom, and I said that if I was 36 at that time, and I thought that if I don't take this chance right now, is সারা জীবন আমার মধ্যে এটা থাকবে যে what if I moved back to Bangladesh. And বিশ্বাস করেন, since then I have never for a day regretted that why I came back to Bangladesh. I remember যে আমি আসার 2 দিন পরে আমার প্রজেক্টের কারণে আমি রাতের বাসে করে চিটাগাঙে বান্দরবনে যাচ্ছিলাম. It just felt, I still remember that feeling. It just felt so right, felt so good that I'm here, and this was what I meant to do. And then of course আমি আমার বিভিন্ন এটা ওটা ট্রায়াল করে I worked for UN for about a year, and then নিজের ভেঞ্চারটা didn't quite work out fully. এক বছর এটা ট্রাই আউট করলাম, but then I basically met the greatest teacher I could ever find in the development sector. So this was the picture on the left was the first time I met him in Bangladesh. I was presenting on my case study of what the company that I formed, and he heard about it, and that he was the chief guest in Bangladesh Enterprise Institute. And then he gave me a lot of ideas that this is how you should do it, you should come and see me. And then he introduced me to a number of people in BRAC Bank, that Amar Jehetu's SME we were working. And the right picture was the last picture I took with him a month before he passed away. Now, then when I joined BRAC, of course, BRAC kind of completely opened my eyes, completely changed my life. And that was, in a way, different things led to me joining at BRAC, but at the same time, that was, in a way, for me, finding my own way, right? But I now, in the Netflix storyline, we'll go to a different timeline. Now, who is this guy, right? And that's now maybe I'll talk a little bit about how he found his way. I mean, BRAC was, you hear about Sir Fazle Abed quite a bit, but his coming to doing BRAC also was a bit of an accident, right? He was an unlikely, what we call it, the unlikely protagonist who came from a very aristocratic family, and he worked as a trained by profession as an accountant, and worked in an oil company, had a good life, very high life, and didn't quite, you don't quite see the kind of suited booted person like that in rural Bangladesh. But one thing changed his life. This 1970 cyclone Bhola. When he used to live in Chittagong at that time, and you all know about this, one of the most deadliest cyclone that happened in Bangladesh's history. Hundreds of thousands of people died, and that was one of the one of the reasons why also the war happened in many ways, because the lack of care by the then West Pakistani government was so severe at that time that it really added to all the built-up frustration that we had against the West Pakistani government at that time. But for him, when he went there, he went to do some relief work, and he saw that when he saw the dead bodies, it's almost like his entire life that he had led in the past felt very meaningless. And he felt that what he was doing was so insulated from real people's problems that it didn't have much meaning for him anymore. Then, of course, the war started. Our big liberation war started. And he resigned, and then he started basically organizing for Bangladesh in his own capacity. When the war finished, thousands of people, refugees, returned to Bangladesh. He sold his flat in London. With that money, he started BRAC. His idea was that he was going to start with the relief work for people, refugees who have come back in a very remote place called Shalla, which is in Sylhet. Right? But very soon, people actually যেটা হয় যে রিলিফের পরে মানুষ আস্তে আস্তে লং টার্ম লাইভলিহুডের চিন্তা শুরু করে, and then they started expecting more from BRAC. And so Sir Fazle Abed spent a lot of time in rural Bangladesh at that time. And at that time, rural Bangladesh wasn't like this, right? It was very, very difficult to go. 2 দিন লাগতো একটা শাল্লাতে ওরকম যেতেই, গিয়ে তারপর ওখানে 15 দিন উনি থাকতেন। তখন তো মোবাইল ফোন ছিল না, there was nothing. It was very, very hard to connect. So সেই জায়গা থেকে মানে basically his idea of development started to change. So he basically thought that development should not be about just charity. It should not be something which is where people who are receiving the support are passive recipients of AIDS. This is a very interesting difference, right? আমরা অনেক সময় মনে করি যে চ্যারিটি করলেই তো হয়, একটা গরু কিনে দিলেই তো হয়, বা একটা মানুষকে একটু সাপোর্ট করলেই তো হয়। But his idea was for BRAC was that BRAC will never become a charity organization. It's going to be a development organization where people living in poverty are going to be active participants of the change process. We will give them some tools, but they are going to be the one who are going to be changing their lives, so that whether BRAC is there or not, it doesn't matter. They can self-sustain and they can change their own fortune. There's a lot more dignity to it. And that was a game changer for BRAC. Its community, compared to other organizations, community was the heart and soul for everything BRAC did. So he kept on thinking, যে এরকম resource-constrained country like Bangladesh, where so many people are there, if we want to solve social problems, we need to basically do more with less, do whatever we have in the local community. How do we turn that into frugal solutions that can actually scale up over time? So because community was front and center, solutions came from all around, right? So many things happened around that time. So if you say that there were no education at that time, so we created this one room model education. The schools, 64,000 schools at one point was set up by BRAC. We went to every single household, our community healthcare workers, who were trained to basically on oral rehydration therapy, to train mothers, because the diarrhea was the biggest killer of children at that time. His child mortality rate was very huge. So between the Orsaline campaign that happened, where community healthcare workers went every single household and taught mothers how to do this and when to give this oral saline when the diarrhea happens, and the immunization campaign that BRAC ran, child mortality dramatically came down in Bangladesh. So then, of course, his focus went into education. Then, these children are surviving, then we need to get all of these children to school. So people are poor for generations because they don't have access to basic services like education, healthcare, financial services. So his aim in life became that how do we provide these services in a different way? Because private sector was not coming in, government was not being able to provide that service. So he saw a role for social sector, and BRAC became the answer. This is the one room school that I don't know how many of you saw. He got the best sort of curriculum designers from around the world, but where the innovation happened, how it was delivered on the ground. Your community women who were sitting at home after giving their matric exam, they were trained to become teachers. Uh, every BRAC program you see, that community folks were trained to become the service providers. So that means that whether BRAC remains or not, the capacity stayed. These teachers became government school teachers later on. These community healthcare workers became the local auntie of the community. So in many ways, what happened was that he thought that we have so many people, rather than looking at them as problems, he turned them as a force for social good. But that force also had its limits in many ways, right? Because oftentimes market fails the poor. এখানে আমি একটু explain করি. The reason is that, for example, when microfinance was provided, a lot of people in the villages bought cow. Um, and the whole idea was that, দুধ দেবে, তারপর দুধ বিক্রি করে extra income আসবে. But then what doesn't happen is that when a same village, so many people actually are producing milk in their community, and the demand is not there, then price falls, right? So essentially, it needed to be linked up with an external market. And that's where, that's just one example. Farmers didn't have access to good quality seeds to do their farming. Then artisans, local women who were involved in doing this crafts work, they didn't have place to sell their product, and their product quality was very, very low because of the lack of input. So he thought then BRAC needs to fill this gap because private sector was not coming in because there was not enough money to be made. He thought that BRAC needs to now put on the hat of the business. And that's where BRAC social enterprises came in. So he set up BRAC Dairy. Arong was set up about 45 years ago to connect the rural artisans product to the urban market where the demands were huge. Arong milk through BRAC Dairy. Again, Arbane, we didn't have access to milk. And then we set up BRAC Seeds to give good quality seeds to the farmers. So all of that was meant, the social enterprises was meant to use the market to solve the problems of the people living in the poverty. So now fast forward 53 years, when BRAC has now become, it's not just an NGO, right? It's much more than an NGO. It's so unique as an organization. There isn't something like this around the world. So it has become a solution ecosystem. On one hand, you have very large-scale social development programs. On the other hand, you have very large social enterprises. Then we have these various investments like BRAC Bank, then BRAC Bank invested in Bcash, BRAC IT, BRACnet. There are a number of these investments. And then we have our very own university, which was originally set up to create socially conscientious leaders of the society. Now, together this forms a constantly evolving solution ecosystem that we are meant to solve problems of the society. And at the same time, of course, it has to be self-sustained and all of that. এখন যেটা হয়েছে আমাদের, we have all these, not all the problems can be solved by businesses. There are a lot of problems of the, for people living in poverty that has to be grant driven, that has to be subsidized. So for that, somebody has to pay. We need the money. So sometimes the government pays, sometimes the government cannot pay or doesn't pay. So we have to get that money from somewhere. So we used to get the money from foreign donations. Now foreign donations are going down. we are now quite self-sufficient. 80% of BRAC's funding actually comes from our own resources because of this constellation of the solution ecosystem. So again, something very, very unique. Now you see that Arong is 75,000 artisans are connected with Arong, and you're all familiar with this. So this is just one example. Their livelihood, their living, all of these are connected. So it's not just the, development organizations doesn't have to just work on programs. These are self-sustaining initiatives that actually solves problems of the society, not only from a livelihood perspective, but at the same time, being proud of our crafts, heritage, and all of that, it has served many purposes. But all of that is, again, not, as I was saying, not all problems are solved by businesses, but we have still one of the most flagship program, most well-known flagship program of BRAC is the graduation program, which actually is focused on what we call the ultra poor. Every year, BRAC spends about 400 to 500 crore taka to take into this ultra poor graduation program, what we call a 2-year program that, you have heard about Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee. They researched this model when it was replicated in 6 countries, and then said that this is the gold standard of poverty eradication. And that's where the huge amount of interest started in this 2-year program. There's a stall outside. You can go and check this out, what this program is about. But this is, again, people who are living less than $25 a day. The World Banker jeta limit, taro ordheker kom. And there are basically almost still about 12 to 15% of the population are living under poverty. These are your single women who got married off early, but their husbands have left them or divorced them. They are sitting with 4 children, cannot do anything. And this is where we invest on these women. And you will also hear from somebody like that today during the event as well. There's Human Story Lab. You can also hear from their own voice about how their life was transformed. So this model is now getting replicated in 46 countries. And we have a dedicated group of people who works with big governments around the world to teach them the learning of this model. Now, BRAC International started in 2002. Now it's in almost 12 countries, and it's expanding widely as well. So again, so what is the lessons from all of this, right? That, you don't have to, everything starts small. But if you have the big ambition, if you start to connect the dots, sky is the limit. Nobody, I don't think, when Sir Fazle Abed, this accountant from who set it up, BRAC, as a relief organization, he did not have in his wildest dreams that BRAC is going to be where it is today. A thriving ecosystem. BRAC University, I heard today that it has more than 20,000 students. But at the same time, it's quite very unique. It's not just in the numbers, but the way the university is set up, the way it's designed, the way the extracurricular activities. It's meant to be a holistic university that will make you think about the society as a whole, right? So think bigger. That's because we don't have any other solution choice. Because in a way, where we are right now I'm coming back to the present, is that in a way our world is many ways at a breaking point. And whether we like it or not, we often think about Bangladesh. Bangladesh is also going through its own crisis. On one hand, there's a political crisis, there's an economic crisis, but most importantly, there's a climate crisis that's happening. Silently, we don't know about this, right? So if you look at just this graph, this looks very technical, but I'm just gonna give you one basic sense. The left one is about, this came out from a joint initiative of BRAC Climate Change Program and MIT, where MIT is using these very sophisticated NASA images and data modeling to forecast how the next 20 to 30 years are going to be. So the left picture is about the heat, how the heat is going to be transformed. So all the left side of Bangladesh, you see that this is gonna go through by 2050, extreme heat is gonna sort of engulf Bangladesh, the left part on the east, sort of the western part of Bangladesh. If you look at the right side, that's about the rainfall. So the bluer stuff with the places is where during the summer months we're gonna have about 20% more rainfall. And the winter months is on the right one where we are gonna have 20% less rainfall. So on average, the rainfall is going to be the same, but we're gonna when it's gonna rain a lot. And on the winter time, it's not gonna rain at all. So what do you think that's gonna do to our entire food ecosystem? আমাদের বড় চাষ করতে হয় উইন্টারে. That's where's the water gonna come from at all? So it's gonna completely reshape how we do agriculture as a whole, unless we prepare for this. So these are just basically some of these biggest crises that are gonna come, right? And then there is this extreme crisis. This is around the world, but we see in Bangladesh as well. The richest 1% have more wealth than the bottom 95%. Extreme inequality in the society. What's that going to do, right? It's going to create more frustration, more social unrest, unless we do something about it. So all in all, I mean, just business as usual is not going to work anymore. We all need to think and act very, very differently. Just see the picture of this house that was built with the ideas from BRAC University, a climate resilient, future-proof house that floats during floods. That's the kind of thing we need to think about. That's the so basically the three lessons from all of this is that first one would be that there was this movie called Field of Dreams a long time ago I saw. There was a quote called, "If you build it, they will come." So you start small, but if you start building things, ultimately people come. You need to build your coalition, you need to build your right partners, you need to have your coalition of the willing and friends, but keep on building, right? The second thing is don't let anyone get you boxed. That, the social, working for the society doesn't mean that you have to have an NGO or you have to have a charity organization. Or, this breakdown between private sector, development sector, government, this and that. You, wherever you are, whatever it takes, you can become part of the solution. So you need to think like that. And BRAC University is meant to train you like that, how to become a part of the solution rather than part of the problem, right? And the last one I would say is to play the long game. Like, I started my second career at the age of 36. But Sir Fazle Abed started BRAC when he was 37, right? So I think in many things, many of you may think, I mean, just like I did, I hated computer science, but I worked with computer science for a long time. Because sometimes you have to step back to move forward as well. So sometimes you have to make some sacrifices because we all have families and stuff, but that doesn't mean that your life will be stuck in that. That whole idea that we start a career is like a tunnel where you go in and then basically the tunnel ends at the end of when you retire and you have the same job. That's not valid anymore, right? So career can change many times during your lifetime. That's how the world has changed, right? So play that long game, play the test innings, not the T20. And I think just to kind of wrap it up, that all of you who are in the room, who are outside the room, who are in part of this campus, you are part of the solution. And I know that this generation is actually think very differently in many ways. And I think I just want to offer BRAC as a platform, and at the same time, BRAC family as a whole, BRAC solution ecosystem wants to be, and it's meant to be part of the solution. So how can we all work together? How can we collate? So it's a force for good in many ways, because BRAC is not owned by anybody. We are all paid staff. So it's the whole decision making, the way it works, the platform, is about how do we problem solve, how do we solve the problem of the society. So I want to just finish that with a short 2-minute video of the founder where he talked about how he looked at success in life. Can we play that video, Adnan?
Can you tell me what success means?
Success to me would mean that I've been able to make somebody else's life better. If I have educated 10 million children, I think it's quite successful. I found human bodies, livestock, cows, goats, floating in the shallow waters of the bay. And that sort of gave me suddenly the feeling that the kind of life I was leading had no meaning. There was complete disconnect, and I need to connect myself to the people of Bangladesh. So that was the first time that I realized that I needed to do something other than what I was doing.
Yeah, that's it. Hold that. Hold that. Amazing.
Okay. Another thing that I decided at that point is that I'm not going to value things. I'm not going to accumulate resource. I'm not going to save money. I'm not going to buy a house and call my own. I don't need to have it. So I still don't have any possession of that kind.
So what do you value?
I value service to the people. I value people's lives, that people shouldn't die because they're poor. I value education for children. I value quality education. I value children learning through play. So I value all kinds of things which I didn't value before.
So what can you say to the bosses of corporations now, government heads? If you could speak to all them in one go, what do you say to them?
Give women, girls, women the authority and responsibility, and you will never regret it. So I think women have the capacity to do everything that men can do, and then sometimes with better judgment.
How lucky I am to meet
Thank you. Thank you.
right?
My name is Abed, and I try to make people's lives a little easier and bring joy to people's lives.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.